Hello, friends.
Hello, friends.
Hi, Steve.
Hey, what's going on? I like the red sweater.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we're just waiting for Akash, Stephanie, and Natalie. And
Akash had a camera issue that he's trying to sort out.
it's Brian, and I always have camera issues, but not today. For some reason, the universe was like, okay, I'll give you a break. Your camera will work today. For how long,
But
I don't
only
know,
today.
but only today. Yeah, so awesome. So we are live out there in the great expanse. So welcome everyone. Uh, 1 second here. Welcome to our panel on navigating Web3 and emerging technology. We're waiting for our moderator, as you just heard. He will be here shortly. But I guess while we're waiting, we can just do a little bit of a chat here. So, Eliza, Brian, how are you guys doing today? What brings you here? Oh yeah, wait, you're actually at the summit, but at the panel. But here we are.
What brings us here?
Awesome. Yeah. What? Yeah. Like, how's it going? Like, what's going on today? Let's fill some time.
So it's raining. It's very rainy today. I'm really excited. I'm really excited to participate today and to see the rest of the panels after this and just dive more deeply into Web3. At Chain Reaction, we're really blockchain focused. So this is exciting for us.
Awesome.
Yeah, totally. And likewise, very excited to be here and talking about this really exciting industry. There's been so much growth since I got into the whole space in kind of like late 2018. But I got really into the development side 2019, and so much has happened in the last few years. So I'm just really excited to talk about that and just also learn from my fellow panelists on other cool things that I should be following and reading on Twitter and the internets and everything.
Very, very cool. So I'm going to pop around a little bit, see how other folks are doing. Hopefully this panel gets underway soon. Great to see you guys.
Awesome. Great to see you, Steve. Thanks.
So Brian, why don't we pause for a minute and just see, I have a feeling our fellow panelists might be going through that process of checking in before we got in. Thanks everybody for waiting.
Yeah, hey everyone. Oh, we have a chat. Oh, there's a bunch of people here. Hey.
We have a chat function.
Welcome.
So we would start, but we don't have all of the panelists or the moderator. It's just the two of us. So we'll wait a couple more minutes in hopes of having a richer session.
Yes.
But while we're here, just so we save time on the other end when people join, do you want to we can each introduce ourselves quickly?
Yeah, totally. That'd be great. Do you want to lead off?
Why don't you go?
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, hey everyone. My name is Brian Hough. I am a Web2 and a Web3 developer. I also run a YouTube channel and a podcast called the Tech Stack Playbook, and I build applications on cloud and also apps for the blockchain. And I got into the space in late 2018. I had a really cool opportunity when I graduated college. I was working for a center at the Harvard Kennedy School on American Indian economic development. They had a partnership with Google, and I got to build a virtual 3D exhibits on Google's art and culture platform. And that kind of guided me into sort of pushing things onto the internet and what that could actually mean. Overlapping that, I got a very cool opportunity to run communications for A Decimal Capital. It's a $60 million blockchain fund. And it was just so exciting to dive into the global world of blockchain. I did not know anything about blockchain before that. And it was just really history since. I got really into hackathons after that point, and I just started building and learning how to build. And here we are. So that's a little bit about me. Eliza, do you wanna introduce yourself?
Sure, Stephen. We're just doing some intros while we're waiting for others. Hi, Natalie.
Natalie here as well. It's awesome.
Great. Yeah.
Hey, Natalie.
My name is Eliza Petrow, and I am the co-founder and general manager of Chain Reaction. We are a Boston-based but global blockchain angel group. We invest in early stage blockchain startups. We started out really doing more kind of traditional, just fintech, healthcare, supply chain. But lately, we've received a lot of applications in NFTs, in particular, gaming, the metaverse. So we're really excited to just learn more and dive more deeply into this space. Natalie.
Yeah, definitely want to hear from Natalie as she goes off the stage. But she'll be back, I'm sure.
Yeah, it might be the rain. There we go.
Oh, wait. Natalie, you're outside.
And Natalie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I think you got to unmute. There we
Yes,
go.
absolutely.
Hello,
Can you hear me
hello.
okay?
Yes.
There. Hi. Great to see you. And I'm on the road now, but I have a quiet place here. And thank you for having me. I'm the founder and CEO of Darshana, a community Web3 based platform. We get talent to match with great companies. And you know about all this Web3 and blockchain involvement. You know, I had exposure like many years ago. Well, many years is not many years, but many years ago. And then I was doing research at MIT 2016, 17, 18. And that was my first involvement. And then all the road down was to really push good, great use cases and push the right adoption of blockchain and crypto and the rest of the use cases that are around that. So that's about me.
Do you want us to keep talking, Steve, while we're waiting for others?
Yes, I think we've got quite a conversation going on here.
Okay, great.
Because
So
both of these folks are doing some awesome blockchain and Web3 projects.
yeah, so Natalie and Natalie, since you joined a little late, there's some tech trouble, so we don't have our moderator or Stephanie, so we're missing a couple people. But I'll just jump in on my part. So since I work on the investment end as an angel investor, it's been really interesting to work in this space. And some kind of different things that we're seeing compared to maybe some traditional angel investments are it doesn't really matter in terms of these Web3 startups where the location is of the company. You know, in traditional angel investments, we might want to only invest with a local startup that we can really get to know personally. But Web3 is also enabling us to have more relationships and due diligence from a distance. But I'll also find that a lot of companies are not just looking for money, they're really looking for expertise, for mentorships, and for the access to communities that investors can bring. So we really also have to be top of our game, and we need to really be adding value to a lot of these Web3 companies if we want them to actually take our investment. That's something that's also pretty different. So the philosophy feels a little bit different. And then I think for us, like, I don't know how you guys are finding, but it's a really still a regulatory gray area. A lot of the startups that we're seeing, whether, you know, with the token aspect, gaming, whether it's gambling or it's actually gaming, who's custodying the assets. So there's some startups we're super excited about where we love the team and the technology and the idea, but we're still holding off on investment while we're waiting for some of this kind of regulatory gray area to be solved. So I'm not sure how you guys are on the other end finding some of those things.
Yeah, definitely from the regulatory side, it's really interesting what's been happening because there's just been a huge explosion in development and adoption of technologies. I mean, even take it from a technical aspect with Solidity as a programming language for building smart contracts, for building NFTs, for building, you know, token ecosystems. That has become a widely adopted programming language from major industry verticals. And I remember seeing last year when EY, Ernest Young, when they announced that they were going to be building with Polygon and building tools around DeFi and finance. And when you start seeing, you know, Accenture, Boston Consulting Group, McKinsey, EY, really big players in the space building on the same tools as early stage startups, that's pretty interesting that there's kind of a link between these. And I was talking to a couple of my colleagues about sort of the regulatory side of things about a week and a half ago. And I was saying about how they were saying, like, do you think that that's going to affect the industry? And I was saying, well, actually, the regulatory side would be good for the industry because if there's clarity on how the industry can operate and how these technologies can be adopted, there's just that gray area right now. And the gray area is uncomfortable because you don't necessarily know what 1+1 equals in these situations, but you understand it in certain other situations. But if there is that clarity and there is that playbook, I think that that's going to increase adoption tenfold because, again, if there's structures and orders, and that also keeps people safe, right? We like safety, we like security, we like order, but order within creativity. And I think as long as the regulatory doesn't impede their creativity, I think that that's when you'll have a strong combination, and that's where you'll start getting more and more and more adoption. So I'm definitely optimistic as the ecosystem is evolving, but it is interesting. And Eliza, I'm sure from an investment perspective, you sort of have your own perspectives of just different companies that are, being built in the space and are evolving. And as I've contributed to a number of DAOs, I definitely know that that's something that's also interesting, where it's like, what is a DAO? And a DAO is just could become it's like a public LLC or an S corp, but there's certain other structures that you can sort of base it off of. So it is interesting
Absolutely.
being built in the space.
And I would love to hear also what Natalie has to say on the subject. We're actually getting a lot of questions in the chat too, as you're probably seeing, Eliza, about, we've got something here from Carolyn. I'm going to read Carolyn's question for you. Eliza, it says, some of the topics I'm interested in for today are how Eliza sees the Web3 community-based startups like Darshana's incentivized talent platforms. Is there any perspective on that?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. We've seen a couple of those types of applications come through to Chain Reaction. We had a great one come through called Higher Vibes, which was incentivized a community to recommend their friends for jobs and earn tokens and credit for if their friend does get the job. So it's kind of replacing kind of a typical headhunter or HR firm. So I think there's a huge untapped market there, and we'd love to see more applications in that space. Natalie, give you the floor.
Exactly. Just wait for you to get yourself unmiked.
There you go. Oh, I think you're on
I thought
mute.
so. No, I thought that. Yeah, she's probably trying to find a good reception out there in, it's like a beautiful forest area that doesn't look too rainy.
And I'll say the other, are you off mute now?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
While she's doing that, I'll say we have seen also some applications with DAOs. That's been interesting. Even the idea of turning something like Chain Reaction into a DAO, that we kind of figured out it would just, that would be more than probably I could, handle at the moment to figure that out on my own. We need someone like Brian to help. But the idea just that, the DAO model is turning everything upside down. And even for angel groups, that's something we could explore. Governance is always an issue, though, because really, there's that fine line between having the community govern something and then really needing a more centralized governance structure. So that's something that we're interested in. And the other thing I'll just say is, Web3 is still so much an idea, right? There is Web3 happening, but if you just look at the millions versus billions of users in Web2, right, there's still a long way to go. So in Chain Reaction, we're really investing in things that are actually have an MVP, have a product market fit. We are doing like some experimental things in the metaverse, but we're still kind of largely investing in things that are kind of here and now. Brian, anything to add?
I was about to say, if you're interested in making a DAO, there is actually a protocol called Aragon Protocol, and they specialize specifically in that. I don't know if you've come across anyone from that protocol, but it's interesting when you think of like the intersection between needs and like wants, right? Like there's a lot of innovation happening around creation of things like DAOs, because especially when you make a DAO, I mean, a DAO could also just be a multi-sig wallet. And then there's a bunch of people that sort of own or have access to that wallet, and they can do certain things with it. So it can become as complex as you want, or as simple as you want. Maybe you just want a Discord and you just want people to be able to have certain roles and access to communities. So definitely there's a lot to explore, especially for an investor, because then you have more liquidity people can pool into.
Absolutely.
Fund.
Hi,
Looks
Stephanie.
like we have Stephanie here.
Hello.
Hey, Stephanie.
Hello, everybody. I
That's
got
okay.
through the tech. Sorry, I'm late.
No worries. We'll just tell you, we just kind of jumped in. We started introducing ourselves, what we're working on. We're minding the chat box. If you want to introduce yourself, what you're working on in the Web3 space, we'd love to hear it.
Thanks. Yes, I'd love to. My background is in economics. And so I specialized in public finance, which is basically what happens when markets fail. And so I've always been interested in figuring out solutions for that. And that's what brought me to the second career in tech, which is trying to figure out how we bring markets back toward working for everyone instead of these markets that are completely dominated by, as you know, firms with tremendous market power. So I'm looking forward to this new kind of economy that we're building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm most excited about the kind of disruption to the business model in favor of creators and allowing them to hold on to some of their income. But I'm wondering, like, what does it mean for Meta and for Spotify, and how is this going to work that this will actually be allowed to happen? I don't know if anyone has thoughts on that. Yes.
As far as business models, I think there are two possibilities, right? One is that the Meta and Facebooks and Microsofts could continue their strategy of buying up anything that appears successful.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be leading us back to what we've seen in the past 20 years. So I think one of the things that, Eliza, you've put your finger on is to figure out how to make business models for more independent startups, and so that they can survive without having to sell. So we're doing that at Geek, and as a platform, we're providing that for other people to do that as well. So it's a little bit of an issue of who can develop faster.
Can you remind us what Geek's doing with data, and for those who don't know?
That was going to be my question as well, Eliza. Thank you.
Geek is a blockchain infrastructure project. It is rebuilt from the ground up. So other blockchain infrastructure projects people are probably familiar with are Ethereum, Solana, Cosmos, Avalanche. And they are very focused on things like smart contracts, which are exciting and risky for people who are into finance. So we take a different approach, which is that I'm concerned about people's mental health and safety. And Geek is not a smart contract platform. It's built to be secure and attend to people's regular needs in the future.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. There's a question that came in, Brian, asking you, as a practitioner, what are the biggest challenges you see in navigating Web3?
Ooh, that is a great question.
Right.
And I'm very curious for my fellow panelists as well, what they would think. I would say the biggest roadblock that can come up is not necessarily having the resources, but having the right communities and the right mentors around you, because I've connected with a lot of very, very, very big prominent developers in the space. I learn a lot from them. I've been, even in Developer DAO, different members will have sessions and they'll do live coding sessions. And I learn 100 million times more from that than I do from, watching, a random video online that I hope will answer my question. Just surrounding yourself with really smart people will help so much. And Eliza, that goes back to you when you were talking about community. If you don't have that, just in terms of the importance of community, like you were saying, when you don't have that community, like it's really hard to kind of go into anything. But I think especially in Web3, when you can learn from other people and also contribute to what they're working from, is that open source collaboration synergy that I think makes Web3 so special. And I think that's how you sort of navigate that initial barrier, because once you're building with other people, learning from them, contributing to their projects, they're contributing to yours, there's something very special about that doesn't really happen in centralized systems. That does happen in Web3 and more open source ecosystems. So I would say going to hackathons is a great way to learn tools and learn innovative ways to build. That's how I learn a lot very quickly. Kind of taking a weekend and try to create like a weekend hack and try to build something. Those are good ways to get into this space. And I think just being curious. I think if you're not curious, Web3 would be really hard. So just constantly being curious. But, Eliza, Stephanie, Steve, I'm really curious to hear from your perspectives. What would you think about that as well?
So I'll be very brief, because I was also thinking specifically about what Natalie has done, and I wish that she was still here. Hope she comes back. So like with the Web3 familia, I'm going to say two words that I think all three of you are familiar with: Twitter Spaces. So there are so many educational, community-driven Twitter Spaces now related to Web3. Monsi Vora's Komarobi Collective does stuff. Sarah Letterman, who's going to be doing fundraising from the investor's perspective, she does Women in Web3 DAO. There's actually going to be a chat coming on later tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern about all that. So I mean, and Brian knows from our work together in the past, I'm a community builder. I feel like focused, consensus driven, like, cooperative work in this space and in the startup world in general is absolutely crucial. If you're building and you're building very intensely, it's very hard, to Stephanie's point, to sometimes feel okay, to have a sense of well being and balance. So surrounding yourself not only with intelligent people, but empathetic people is crucial.
Eliza, what do you think? You get to ask a lot of questions.
Oh,
seems.
yeah. I'm just playing the temporary moderator, I guess. But I think for us, I guess two things. One is there's so many scams, especially if you're looking at we've had an onslaught of applications for NFTs, and it's sometimes hard for us to really discern which one of these. We've got, 10 applications, 3 are really solid. Which of the 3 do we really think is investable? We started out with blockchain, mostly, with some cryptocurrency, but people can kind of invest in crypto on their own, right? So that's not really the focus of our group. So knowledge, making sure we all have the knowledge. We have investors coming from all different backgrounds who are getting into blockchain, as well as those who are really seasoned. So when we get something, we have to be sure we can evaluate it. And that's where we look to groups into our community to help us, looking to Brian, looking to someone who might know something really much more specific than we do, that could really help us to assess an investment. So I think for us, that's really the biggest challenge that we face, because there's so many opportunities and applications coming our way, and we just got to pick out, which are the right ones for us. What about you, Stephanie?
Well, I'm not a developer, and I know the hackathons and the people who follow that system of gathering just get tremendous amounts. So I recommend them, and I know Steve's been involved in them a lot. I think for me, adjusting to the idea, because I'm old enough to have come along from the model where you tough it out yourself and you kind of keep things to yourself and work, has been an interesting road, because now I think building with the community, you're sort of accountable to them. They have suggestions. They can't wait to use it. They want to tell you how. That listening to feedback at that level for me is helpful in figuring out strategy. So the Twitter sphere, crypto Twitter sphere, is something that I definitely have to keep track of, and I love meeting other founders who are saying, we all have to listen to what are the real needs that are being expressed, and there's a huge demand for things that aren't flash in the pans, right? You just have to sort of sort through all the conversation to say, what are people really wanting besides a quick turnaround?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask a question here from my fellow Stephen Price. So glad you're here, Steve. This is, I think, a perfect question for Brian. How can the ecosystem overcome the issue with finding quality and trusting devs and engineers?
Ooh, that is a great question as well. I would say, and I'm also curious what my fellow panelists would have to say on this too. I think there's and this was interesting because I had a conversation about this in a DAO, actually, in Developer DAO, and they were talking about sort of there's the anonymous dev, and then there's the dev that's kind of, they've like unanoned themselves. And like, while yes, like there are devs that kind of want to stay kind of in the background, I do think that trust is really important to be able to know the developers on a team, to be able to trust the founding team and know who it is. And I think that that's important to kind of overcome just issues with trust. But I do think that even if you think about how you become friends with someone, you don't just meet someone and instantly become BFFs and you start, sharing all your life stories. And maybe you do, but like in special situations. But I think trust is built over time. And if you're able to foster relations with people, whether it's a developer or not, like just people in general, people are people. And I think if you can foster those types of relationships with people long term, not only will you maybe have great friends and great colleagues, but you'll also have a great community around you. And again, kind of coming full circle, you want to build that community around yourself of people that inspire you, people that could be mentors to you. Eliza and Stephanie and Steve, like I know that I've kind of worked, and you've sort of seen my work over the past couple of years, but being able to have people that push you, that make you want to be better versions of yourself, you can also be that for developers. Developers be that for you. So I do think that trust is important, and just being able to know the people within your inner circle and build cool tech together. But I'm curious, Eliza and Steph and Steven, what do you all think?
Yeah, go right ahead, guys.
Stephanie, why don't you go ahead?
I think one of the ways to overcome trust is to evaluate who people hang out with. It's a bit towards Brian's, who is forming relationships, and it's the old rule. You kind of are who you hang out with, and so if you look for people who treat each other respectfully, address the problems head on, acknowledge that there are issues, acknowledge that we need to think about solutions. There are a lot of great people out there that are working on the problems, and those are the ones I want to collaborate with. And we have a philosophy that sort of says, honest is kind. You don't want to just snow somebody with a lot of promises. Let's talk about it and work on it. I think that's the fastest way to make progress, and those are the people to trust. So.
I think we only have a minute and a half left, but I did see that someone asked a question about Web3 impacting HR recruiting and training, and we had kind of mentioned it a little before. Maybe Stephanie, you got on the call with some kind of more crowdsourcing apps that were coming about recommending friends and verifying them for jobs. Do you have any thoughts on that? And Brian, if not Stephanie, since you came a little late, I want to be sure you get a chance to comment.
I think Stephanie might have frozen. Oh,
she froze. Okay, Brian, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say, and I know because I see a lot of the different partners, and they like Toptal, for example, like they try to hire like really elite, former ex-Fang developers that they can go and build things. But I would say in terms of HR and recruiting, I think that and I've been told this from my bosses and my supervisors, there's nothing better than a developer that's inspired, motivated, and hungry. Because if you can find those developers, they're at hackathons, they go to these events, they like building, they love problem solving. That's what I've found is really helpful for HR and recruiting. But Stephanie, please go ahead, because I'm sure you have much grander ideas of hiring than me.
What's precious time to spare?
I would rather toss back because I think Brian is the one who's really on the ground.
Okay.
Say a little more, Brian. 5
we're
seconds.
Gonna end. 5 seconds.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Nice to see all of you.
Nice to see you as well.
Yeah, this was really fun.
Let's figure out now.
So are we gonna? So how does this end? Do we still stay on the stage, or do we go to the other part?
No, we're still live. They said treat like a hot mic.
Okay.
So we have to figure out how to exit the stage.
Switch. Try hitting switch. Backstage. Let's go backstage for a sec.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm trying to get backstage. Tell you what, let's just shut it off. Bye.